Welcome everyone to fourth session. Today we will discuss that how to create an M&E plan. First of all, to understand about how to create M&E plan, we will define the M&E plan. The definition of M&E plan is that the M&E plan is the set of documents that state which information we will collect, how it will be collected, and what we will do with the information. So according to this definition, we understand that the M&E plan deals that how to collect information and the usage of information. M&E plan contains the following parts. The first one is introduction document. The introduction document describes the organization and the project goals and plan. The second part of the M&E plan is logical framework or result framework. The logical framework describes the project activities, outcomes, and impacts. So the second part is logical framework. Third, indicators document. The indicator documents define the indicators that we measure the achievement of the project or program. Number 4, data flow map. Data flow map describes that how data will be collected, stored and used. Number 5, roles and responsibilities chart. The role and responsibility chart explain that who will be responsible for M&E activities. And number 6, plan for data quality management. Plan for data quality management describes that how data quality will be ensured. And number 7, plan for data analysis in use. The plan for data analysis in use explains how data will be analyzed for monitoring and evaluation. These 7 parts are the content of M&E plan. To create an M&E plan, we must do these steps. According to these steps, we can create an M&E plan. The first step is to know our project. This is the first step. Second one is choose our indicators. The third step is how we will measure indicators. Number 4, to create tools for the indicators. Number 5, roles and responsibilities. And finally, we have decided how data will be analyzed and used. So we will discuss these steps one by one. The first step is to know our project. To know our project, as before we have mentioned, that we must describe our organization, our project and the goals and plan. And now, when we understand about the project, we must link M&E to project design. To link M&E to project design, we will here explain it in a simple example. Imagine that you are a bus driver. You have a dashboard. Here you have a kilometer counter and you have speed meter, and you have a clock. You have all these great things in your bus dashboard, but you did not understand that where you will go to the city. So your trip is useless. So when we create an M&E plan, it is also like this, that it must be related to a project design. If it has not relationship with the project design, it will be totally useless. So the M&E plan must be according to the project design. When we understand about the project design and M&E to related to the project design, the second step that we have mentioned before of this here is that the logical framework or result framework. Here we will discuss logical framework. So what is logical framework? Logical framework or Logframe is a simple analytical tool used to plan, monitor and evaluate a project. The Logframe has 4 rows and 4 columns. Input and outputs are called activities. Outcome and impacts are called goals. Also, we have here project summary, and there is indicators and means of verifications. It means that every indicator must have means of verifications. Otherwise, it will not be an indicator if the means of verifications are not available. And we will not understand it how it will be measuring and how to will measure the success. And finally, risks and assumptions. So this is the structure of Logframe, and this is the Logframe introduction. Now we will learn about these key terms in the next slide. As we have mentioned that before, that Logframe is a simple analytical tool used to plan, monitor and evaluate a project. Here we have a Logframe and another definition. It's a tool of project design to understand the project activities like as input and output, and also to understand about the short-term and long-term goals, and how progress toward goals will be measured, risk and assumptions. The second term is input. Input is that the resources which go to our project is like money, time, machinery, place, and other resources. Output, these are the product or the service that our project make. For example, here we have example home belts, loans given, for example, workshop held. Outcomes. Outcomes, the positive effects of the project is called outcomes. For example, participants learning new skills, the rate of illness going down. Impact. Impact, this is the large positive change that we have hope from the project implementation. For example, improving the health of a target population, saving species from extinction. Risk. Factor outside of our control that could cause our project go poorly. For example, participants may not be able to get to workshop. Funds intent for the project may be taken by government officials. Assumptions. Things that you believe but that are not supported by evidence. For example, participants will be allowed to join this activity. Participants who have learned financial skills will want to save money. These are the terms that we must understand about the in the log frame. The log frame terms are these that we must understand. Risk and assumptions play significant role in the design of the project in Logframe. We must consider risks and assumptions seriously. Otherwise, the project will be failed. So when we design a project, in the first time we will develop a log frame. In the log frame, first step is impact that we must write in the above, and then we must write input, outputs, and outcomes. Here we have another great slide, the logical flow. What is the logical flow? For example, here we have one example, a simple example, and we define here impact, feel more confident. So what should we do to feel more confident? So here we have used what is the input. We do exercise every day. For example, we do run. For example, we go to gym. So we do exercise every day. When we do the exercise every day, it burns calories. As the calories burned, so we will lose weight. And when we lose the weight, we will feel more confident. So, and the logical framework, all these will have flow. Otherwise, it will be totally useless. So in the first, we define impact, and then we have input and output, and the third step is outcome. So here we understand that the logical flow. The role of evidence. To think like as an expert, you must have evidence for every activities, because through evidence you can make decisions. If you have already prepared a log frame, so take a look through your project summary. If we have evidence, we must write in the logical framework, because donor has more interesting with evidence. If we don't have evidence, we will note it, and this is called assumption. And assumptions are the belief which is not supported by evidence. So we must have evidence when we develop a log frame, or we will have a strong assumption. But assumptions are not strong than evidence, because evidence play very significant role in the design of logical framework. Three steps in Logframe. Three steps in Logframe are: first, as I have mentioned before of this, that we must define impact. So the first step is in logical framework is to define impact. The second step is activities, to define activities. The activities are input and outputs. And finally, the third step is define outcome. You must define outcome. Outcome is not the second step, it is the third step. It's why we will learn in the next slide. But why the outcome is the third step, not second step. Define the impact. We have many project designers that they define a input and output at the first. It is totally wrong idea, because the input and output will not lead impact of the project. So in the first, to design a project, we must define the impact, and then we will define input and output, and finally the outcome. So the impact is the most important part of the project, because we work for that, we struggle for that. So the impact of the project is the main and long-term effect that we wish to bring this change in the world or in the global. So first we will define the impact. For example, here we have defined an impact: increase the financial prosperity of girls in the province. This is our impact that we define in the first step. So what should we do? The next step is we must define activities. In activities, we have learned the previous slide that it is input and outputs. Inputs are the resources that we use for a project or activity. For example, money, space, time, machinery, and other resources. And also we have output. It is the intermediate results, or it's the product that we use inputs, and we have a result. It's called outputs. So in the second steps, we must define input and outputs. And finally, we have outcome. Outcome is the linkage between activities and impact. It means if the outcome was satisfactory, so it means that we take part in the impact and we work for impact. If not, it means that our project did not achieve the set target or the set impact. So to understand this here, we must define outcomes. Here we have inputs, outputs, inputs and outputs. Also, we have here outcomes. It is the activity that we did not understand, that when we build and we receive the output, what will happen to the project? What will be the change of the project? So this is called outcomes. So here, the girls start new businesses and girls upgrade equipment in existing business. So this is the outcome. Here we have logical flow. Money per microloans, girls receive microloans. So when the girls receive microloan, girls start new businesses and girl also upgrade equipment in existing businesses, and also so it take part in the financial prosperity of girls in the province. So these were the three steps that we have learned and the logical framework. Now we have risk and assumptions. What is risk and assumptions? Risk and assumptions, for example, here we will give one example, very simple example. We have the birthday of our mom and we prepare a big party, but suddenly we think that we will ask from mom. So we think about with ourselves, what if mom's childhood friends cannot travel to town? For example, what if mom does not want to see her childhood friends? What if mom hates surprises? What if mom would prepare a small party? So when we prepare a party for our mom birthday, so we have here created many assumptions with ourselves and our mind. So risking assumptions or that risk or the things outside of our control, and it may disrupt our plan. And assumptions are the biases, the things that we believe without much evidence. So risk is negative and assumption is positive, that we think, but there is no evidence to support it. So when we design a project, it's very important to find the risk and assumptions. Before to start a project, we must understand about the risk and assumptions of the project. Otherwise, the project will fail. For example, when we design a log frame, here we summarize the input, output, and outcome and impacts. So, for example, an input money for microloans, but here we created an assumption. There are not enough funds for microloan. For example, this is a risk. There are not enough funds for microloans. We think negatively. Uh, or also microloans are given to the wrong people, and we have created here risk and assumptions, and girls are not interested in getting microloan. So also for outcomes, girls start new businesses. So we have an assumption, we have created an assumptions. Girls might not want to start or upgrade businesses. Girls might not be discouraged from starting or upgrading business by their family or culture. So girls might not know how to start or upgrade a business. Or finally, for impact, the girl business might not be a financially successful, as we think that the in impact we have defined that our impact, that this the financial prosperity of girls in the province. So it means that when we design a logical framework, we must summarize input and outputs, and then we will have risk and assumptions for every input, output, and outcome and impact level. It will help with us to understand about the risk and assumptions of the project, and we go smoothly to implement a project without any obstacles and problems. So also we have the column of indicators in means of verification. Here, when we have summarized the inputs, so we will create uh, indicators for input, uh, and also we will have output indicators. We have outcome indicators, levels indicators, and also impact level indicators. And every indicator must have means of verifications. Means of verification means that it is the supportive document of the indicator. Every indicator must have means of verifications. Otherwise, the indicator would not be supporting, and it will fail the project. So means of verification is must for every indicator to understand that how you measure the indicator. So when we do all these activities, we think like as an M&E expert. So here we will understand that we have connected the our M&E systems to a project design, and we will not think like as by scenes. We will think like as an M&E expert, and for really a complete M&E plan, we must spend time, and we must try to respond to risk and assumptions before during the project design phase. And this type of research is also called formative research, as we have studied in the before in the previous lessons. Some monitoring and evaluation questions. First, the monitoring question. The monitoring questions are: do we have enough inputs being provided? We must ask this question when we design the monitoring and evaluation plan. Are enough inputs being provided? How will do your inputs leads to your outputs? And the third question is: how will do your outputs leads to outcomes, or any of the risk assumptions that you identified during your projects? So these are the questions that we must understand when we prepared uh, a monitoring and evaluation plan. And these questions are asking in the monitoring. Also, we have some evaluation question that when we prepared the monitoring and evaluation plan, we must ask: did uh, our input produce enough output? So it's very important to understand that our input uh, produced enough outputs, and also outputs enough outcome. Also, it produces impact, and also assumption and risk hurt the project or not. We must understand this in the evaluation. And finally, where are there an unexpected risk or assumptions? So we must understand this. We will notice. Now, two questions. The first one is why it's important to do monitoring and evaluation during the design phase. So, to do monitoring and evaluation in the design phase, it helps with us to set target easily, and we understand that how we will measure the target efficiently. So it's very important to know about the monitoring and evaluation during the design phase. So it's important in place significant role in the design phase. The second question is, a project log frame is a snapshot of the project implementation. It Yes, it is a snapshot for the project implementation. So we use our log frame to test our theory of change. What is the theory of change? The theory of change we will discuss in the next lessons, but here I will give one simple examples. For example, we have input indicators, input indicators in our log frame. For example, 5 input uh, uh, indicators in our log frame. The Here, for example, we have output our project created, for example, 3 outputs. Also, it means that this input and this input produce this output, and this output and this input created this output, and this input produced this output. So next we have outcome. What it mean? For example, these two outputs produce this outcome, and this one output produces one outcome. Also, we have finally impact. So these two outcomes produce an impact. So the logical framework is a snapshot in the project implementation because it helps with us to design a theory of change. The theory of change is a scenario. For example, if you add this input, what will happen? Will we achieve the output? If we add this output, will we achieve the outcome? And will we, for example, join these two outcomes, will we earn impacts? So it gives a snapshot. Yes. Thank you.